Hello, I'm Ryan.
Hello, I am Amy. Welcome to Listen to English Podcast.
Today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people listening can relate to.
Okay?
When you understand English perfectly fine, you can read it, you can listen to it, but when it comes to actually speaking it, you just feel like your mind goes blank.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious why that is.
It's a really common problem, and yeah, I think we've all been there. It's like you've got all the words and all the grammar rules somewhere in your brain, but when you actually need them, they're just not there.
Yeah, and then you start to kind of get down on yourself and you think,
Oh,
am I saying this right? Do I sound stupid?
right.
Does my grammar sound bad? And then you kind of just don't talk.
Yeah, it appears that people are just afraid of making mistakes, and that's a huge factor for English learners. Studies show that we don't want to seem incompetent, and when we're already a little bit self-conscious about our English skills, we don't want to add to that by making a mistake.
It's like we're thinking about it too much. And that's what's stopping us from speaking.
Yeah, overthinking can really make it a lot harder to speak.
Because it's not about
Yeah.
being perfect. It's just about communicating.
Exactly. Fluency is not about perfect grammar every time you open your mouth. It's about getting your ideas across.
And even native speakers make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, we make mistakes all the time. We say like sometimes we forget a grammar rule, but we can still talk to each other and understand each other.
So how do we move away from this overthinking, from this need to be perfect?
Well, one of the big things is that you have to stop translating everything in your head.
Okay.
It appears that a lot of English learners, they translate from their native language to English in their heads, and that really slows down the speaking process.
So you're basically hitting the pause button every time you want to say something new.
Right, it's like a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, we need to think in English.
So instead of seeing a cat and thinking gatto and then translating it to cat, you just think cat.
Right, just cat.
Yeah.
And how do you make that happen? How do you make your brain switch from your native language to thinking in English?
Exactly.
Well, it takes time, but there are things you can do. One thing that might help is to use sticky notes to label things in your house.
Oh, like label the lamp?
Yeah, lamp door table. Just seeing the words all the time will help.
Yeah.
It might help to make that connection in your brain.
So what are some other things that we can do to practice speaking and not be so worried about making mistakes?
Well, one thing that a lot of people do is they get a language partner or a tutor.
Okay.
And that's great because it gives you someone to talk to in English and you can make mistakes and they can help you.
And you know that they're learning too, so you don't feel so bad?
Right. You can laugh about it together.
Okay, so what about when you're by yourself? What can you do to practice?
If you're by yourself, you can try something called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah. You listen to someone speaking English like in a podcast or audiobook and then you try to copy them.
Oh, so you try to sound just like them.
Yeah, you try to copy their pronunciation and intonation.
Okay, so how does that help?
Well, it helps train your ear to hear the sounds of English. It can help you sound more like a native speaker.
Oh, so you're kind of immersing yourself in the language.
Right. And you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as you have something to listen to, you can just get those words flowing.
I think a lot of people feel shy about speaking out loud, especially when they're alone.
Yeah, but it's really helpful.
Okay. So besides shadowing, what else can you do when you're by yourself?
You can also talk to yourself.
Talk to myself.
Yeah, just talk about what you're doing or what you're thinking. It might feel strange at first.
Yeah, it's like having a conversation partner who's always there
Right.
and who never judges you.
Exactly. And another way to practice is to record yourself speaking.
Record yourself.
Yeah. It might sound scary, but it can help you see how you're doing.
I guess you could hear things that you don't realize you're doing.
Right. Like maybe your pronunciation or intonation or the speed you're speaking.
So you can kind of look back and see how you're improving over time.
Exactly. And it can help you focus on the areas you need to work on.
So we talked about thinking in English. We
Yeah.
talked about shadowing, talking to yourself and recording yourself.
Right.
Those all sound like good ways to get better at speaking.
Yeah.
But what about making mistakes? I think that's what people are really afraid of.
You have to remember that everybody makes mistakes. Even native English speakers.
Yeah.
They're part of the learning process.
Yeah. But it can feel embarrassing to make a mistake, especially when you're talking to someone else.
I know. But you just have to try to let it go and keep talking.
So what you're saying is don't worry about making mistakes.
Yeah, just keep practicing.
And don't be afraid to speak.
Right.
Okay.
The more you practice, the better you'll get.
Yeah.
And that's how you learn.
Okay.
Mistakes are part of the process.
Right. So it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, don't be afraid of them.
Okay. I think that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, just keep speaking.
Yeah.
Don't worry about being perfect. Just keep practicing and you will improve.
Great advice. I think that's really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, I hope so. It's like, if you think about it, when a native speaker makes a mistake, they don't just stop talking.
Right.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
They might correct themselves or they might not even notice.
Right.
But they don't let it stop them.
Yeah, and it appears that for English learners, we tend to kind of freeze up
Yeah.
and think, oh my God, I made a mistake. Now everyone's judging me and I should just stop talking.
It's important to remember that most people aren't listening that closely.
Yeah.
They just want to understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
So just keep talking.
So one thing that we've been talking about on this podcast is that it's important to make English a daily habit.
Yes.
Definitely.
But how can we make time for that?
We don't have to have like a big, long conversation every day.
Right.
Just a few minutes here and there can make a difference.
But what are some actual things that we can do? Think about your day-to-day routine. Maybe you could describe your surroundings on your way to work.
Like talk about the traffic.
Yeah, or the buildings, or the people you see.
Okay.
You could have imaginary conversations in English while you're doing chores.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or you could practice ordering food in your head.
Yeah.
Anything to get those words flowing.
And there are so many resources online these days, too.
Yeah.
There are language exchange apps and online communities
Right.
and YouTube channels.
It appears that those can be really helpful for finding people to talk to.
Yeah, and it can also help you realize that you're not the only one
Yeah.
who makes mistakes or who's learning.
Everyone's in the same boat.
Right.
We're all learning together.
Okay, so let's do a little recap of what we talked about today.
Okay.
So the main takeaway, it appears that it's to stop overthinking.
Yes, overthinker.
Yeah, don't get stuck in your head trying to be perfect.
Just focus on communicating.
And how can we stop overthinking?
Think in English. Not in your native language.
Don't translate.
Right? Just think in English.
It's like learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
At first, you're really wobbly and you have to think about every movement.
Right.
But then after a while, you just do it.
Yeah. It becomes natural.
So just keep practicing.
Yes. And there are so many ways to practice.
Yeah.
You can talk to yourself. You can
Mhm.
chat with a language partner.
Mm-hmm.
You can use online resources.
And we often talk about listening and reading.
Right.
But speaking is important too.
Yes. Speaking is how you become fluent.
And it's how you actually use the language
Yeah.
in real life.
It's where the magic happens.
Yeah, like when you can tell a story or make a joke,
Exactly.
that's what it's all about.
It's about connecting with people
Yeah,
and expressing yourself.
it can be scary,
Yeah,
but it's worth it.
definitely.
And remember, you're not alone.
Right. There are so many other English learners out there.
Yeah,
We're all in this together.
so just keep speaking.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Okay, so we're almost done here. But before we go, I'm going to give you one more thing to think about. It appears that if you want to get better at something, you got to do it right.
Right. You can't just talk about it. You got to actually do it.
Yeah. So what is one small thing that our listeners can do today to start speaking more English?
It doesn't have to be anything big.
Right. Just a little something.
Like maybe when you're driving to work, you could try describing what you see out the window in English.
Okay. So talk about the cars and the traffic and the trees.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you learned a new word or phrase on this podcast, try to use it today.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Even if you don't have anyone to talk to, you can still practice.
Okay.
You could listen to a podcast and repeat some of the sentences or try to summarize it in your own words.
Well, that's a good idea.
It's all about making a little bit of effort every day.
Yeah. Little by little.
And before you know it, you'll be speaking more confidently.
It's kind of like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You don't see results right away.
Right.
But if you keep going,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get stronger.
Yeah.
So keep practicing your English.
And don't give up.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right. Mistakes are part of the process.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Listen to English podcast.
We hope you enjoyed it.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.